Look, we're always glad to bring you good news here on Washington Watch, and especially when it has to do with protecting the lives of vulnerable children. Well, yesterday, the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals upheld laws in both Tennessee and Kentucky to protect minors from harmful, irreversible, and really what amounts to nothing other than experimental gender procedures. The court recognized the damage that these procedures do. They stated actually that no one disputes that these treatments carry risks or that the evidence supporting their use is far from conclusive. Well, joining me now to discuss this is Arkansas State Representative Robin Lundstrum. She has been a champion on the SAFE Act to protect children. In fact, she has assisted other state lawmakers to develop their own versions of SAFE Act laws. She represents the 18th District of Arkansas. Representative Lundstrum, welcome back to Washington Watch. Great to have you.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you for having me. This is an exciting day.
It really is. Go ahead.
Forward.
What does this mean?
Well, it's an exciting day to see these cases come forward. We've lost a few and we've won a few, which means eventually the Supreme Court's going to have to weigh in. But what's exciting about this Tennessee and the Kentucky case is they're saying, wait a second, these kids are minors. They're not old enough to actually make a decision. And what I got a big kick out of it is one of the judges made the comment that this is an ever-moving field. And this is experimental. So the judges are also looking at this from the science. They're looking at this, that these are minors and they can't possibly make these decisions. And they're also looking at the actual science, that's what we've said all along. You can't change your genetics. It's just not possible. So the judges are getting clued in on this, and they're looking at the medical information and making good decisions. And there's been 3 cases, 3 circuits that have not gone our way. So when you have that conclusion or that disagreement, guess what? The Supreme Court starts to weigh in. And so we're on that course. And it's going to be interesting to see how these other cases come out as well. There's 20 states now that have said this is a bad idea. This is harming children. So it's going to be interesting to see how this all goes. Arkansas is on its way to the 8th Circuit. So we've heard from the 11th Circuit. We've heard from the 6th Circuit. And I think we're going to be hearing some more information coming soon.
That is fantastic. Well, Robin, let me just, in behalf of all our viewers and listeners and people all across America, say a big thank you for your leadership. You really have been a champion on this. And as you mentioned, now so many other states, in essence, are following your lead and that of some of the great leaders there in Arkansas. You know, I look at this decision, and it's obviously an enormous victory for children, for parents, and all that sort of thing. But it's also a victory for democracy in a lot of ways. I mean, it validates the reality that elected leaders of the people are empowered to enact laws that don't violate the Constitution, obviously, but our elected leaders are indeed validated by this decision to enact laws. Do you agree with that?
I do. And what I think is interesting is each of these states did their own version of the SAFE Act, and their elected officials stood up. And each of these 20 states are really brave to go forward, step up. They saw what happened in Arkansas, and it was a difficult process in Arkansas, and they still championed it, and they still moved forward, and they still passed it. Even though there were some governors that weren't too happy about it, there were also some governors that said, bring it, let's do this. So I love the fact that that's happening, and there's still more states that are going to go back and do this. So yes, parents are also saying, wait a second, these are our children, and you're not going to cut off body parts of our children. You're not going to experiment on our children. So I love that the experiment is in our democracy, and our democracy is stepping up and saying, wait a second, we're a republic, not a democracy. You don't get to vote, nationwide vote. These are parents and elected officials partnering together to say, you're not going to touch our children. And I love that. And it's going to keep coming back and fighting for our kids.
Absolutely. And, you know, all of this wrapped up together is just extremely exciting and encouraging. And, you know, just to go back a little bit to what you've been able to accomplish there in Arkansas, you know, really largely with your leadership and the work of others, I know, but Arkansas was the first to pass a law to protect children from these mutilating surgeries and other type of treatments like this. And of course, it's often the case with the first law, it gets tangled up in the courts. All right, so you have watched that there in your own state. And yet it seems encouraging to me that now that we have some success in places like Kentucky and Tennessee and Missouri and other places, it looks like momentum is changing, perhaps even for Arkansas. What do you think is going to happen there?
I'm hoping right now the sex change surgeries, surgical and chemical, move forward in Arkansas. So it's still a sad thing in Arkansas that the judge has stepped forward and put a block on this. And so fortunately, we had a great attorney general in Leslie Rutledge, and she's now our lieutenant governor. So it didn't stop her from moving forward. And now we have a wonderful attorney general in Tim Griffin. And Tim doesn't know anything but 110 miles an hour. And he is working hard, and he's got an incredible staff of attorneys, and they're going to the Eighth Circuit. So they're right there in the middle of it. And they're also partnering with other attorney generals. So they're all working together. So a victory in Tennessee and Missouri and Kentucky is a victory for everybody. So I'm excited. Tim has been texting and updating me and keeping me in the loop. And it's exciting to see all these attorney generals saying, wait a second, children are worth fighting for and worth protecting. So this is a movement of individuals saying, wait a second, we're not going to look back in 10 or 15 years and say we didn't do anything. We stood up when the time was to stand up. So it's neat to see. And then the co-sponsors on this bill, they all came back. They were reelected. We've had an election since then, and all of them were told, you're not going to make it back. They all made it back. So, yes, the people back home got it. They had our backs,
Boy,
and they
did.
sent. Mm-hmm. So it's a neat.
Look, there's going to be challenges, of course. I mean, we've already had, right after the court decision, the ACLU and others came up saying that they're going to continue the fight to have the right to mutilate children's bodies. And as you said, this is inevitably going to find its way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Robin Lundstrum, I want to thank you so much for your incredible leadership. We are extremely grateful for all that you have done, and thank you for joining us on Washington Watch.